So my sound decided randomly not to work for like the first two clips, so that's my intro gone. So hi guys, my name is Stella. This is the Pionus guide. Joined with me in the video is my Pionus Charlie, so totally unbiased as you can tell. I am currently free flight training her to become the first free flighted Pionus in Denmark. Yeah, I don't see a lot of Pionus content, so I thought I'd add some. I hope to like make videos on me training her and also like animal content in general. But yeah, the sound returned after the two first clips, so I'll just plug you in there. And yeah, sorry for the sound not working. And now, as with any pet, before we begin, please do your own research. Don't take this as a how-to by any means. Take it as like a perhaps to take it as a little guideline, and maybe you'll like find some topics that you want to do more research on. I'm just here to like go over them shortly because I don't want this to be like an hour-long video. That's too much work. I'm sorry. So yeah, please just do your own research on any pet you're getting, especially parrots. They're a long-time commitment, but we'll get into that. All right. So the Pionus originate from South America, and there are 5 different color variants in the pet trade as of now, which is the white-capped Pionus, the bronze-winged Pionus, the Maximilian Pionus, the dusky Pionus, and the blue-headed Pionus. Common for all of them are the red feathers under their tail, so they all have that. Now, you may also notice that they look a bit more dull in their colors, and this is because Pionus are one of the parrot species that don't produce oil gland, which is a sort of conditioner that birds like spurt out during preening, which makes their feathers look more like vibrant and colorful. Pionus don't have that, that's why they may have a more duller look, but I don't mind. I think it makes them look a bit like more raw, but in a cool way. Alright, personality. This is where it gets exciting, and hopefully I can tell you guys what I mean without sounding too confusing, and hopefully you can understand me. Now, Pionus aren't the super fun clown bird who will lay on their back chasing toys on the floor. They are more like, yo, I just want to hang out while you do you. And that's fine. It's not to say that they are not entertaining or anything. They just seem more like independent birds. And while you don't get a funny clown bird, you still get a bird that doesn't need to be around you 24/7, if that makes any sense. Don't get me wrong, Charlie still enjoys my company, but a good example is that if I were to leave the room, she would follow me giving the chance, but if I tell her to stay in here for a short while, or let her in a cage to be in here for a longer period of time, she wouldn't scream at me for attention or anything. She would just accept it, go in, play with her toys, and just sort of be herself a little bit. And that's fine, like, that's super great. And I know that you can train other parrots to do exactly the same thing, but it just feels like that it comes more naturally with Pionus parrots. Okay, so I felt the need to demonstrate what I meant, because what the fuck am I talking about? So yeah, Charlie's on my head right now, showing off her butt, but I'll just show you what I mean. Oh, and you're probably thinking, did she really just change outfit and hairstyle just to do this? And let's just pretend I did, because then it looks like I put more effort into it than I really should. So yeah, I totally did. Alright, I'm leaving, Charlie. Bye. Yay! Okay, so she follows me, giving the chance, and now you need to go in here. Close up her cage, and I leave. I'm back again. So yeah, quiet bird. And on the subject of quiet, get a fish. Just kidding, the filter would make noise as well, so. Pionus are quiet birds, and that's the thing. They are quiet for being birds. They scream. All birds scream. It's almost impossible to get a bird that makes zero noise at all. Why did you land on the camera? But yeah, I would consider Charlie a quiet bird. Like, she maybe screams in the morning. That's very normal for birds. She will scream like 2 seconds and then she's over it. Other than that, maybe when I come home and it's taking too long to say hello to my dogs, she will scream for me to come down and say hello to her. But really, other than that, it's like maybe some chirping on her tree, if you heard that, and maybe some beak grinding in the evening, the very threatening chewing noise, which either means that she's happily playing in her cage or that I can charge my phone in the evening. This is what she did to my camera, so as you can tell, she is very well behaved and definitely a prime example of how to have a bird. So yeah, totally listen to me, guys. You can have quiet sun conures, you can have noisy Pionus. Don't take my word for it, but the general thing I'm hearing is that Pionus are quiet birds. So not a lot of noise, but on the other hand, if you are going for a bird that can learn to talk, or maybe sing you a lullaby in the evening, I am sorry to inform you that you still have to call your mother on that one, because the chances are very, very low. The two things often go hand in hand, is what I'm seeing, that a bit noisier bird, you can learn to talk easier, so I'm sorry, but that's just not the Pionus. So like, just in short, to sort of summarize, if you can sort of see where I'm going, they are more like quiet companions who just want to hang out rather than playing and engaging with you 24/7. They still want to learn tricks and they are still very cuddly, don't get me wrong. Charlie really loves her screeches. Sometimes when I'm out in public, she doesn't want to be touched at all, but she's still very like interested in her surroundings, and she still just sits there and wants to hang out with me. So again, if you can sort of see where I'm going, more of a laid back quiet bird rather than a center of attention all going bird. Yeah, I'm gonna get murdered for this. So for those of you that don't know, parrot diet is like a topic that calls for a meeting at the Keyboard Warriors headquarters. It's really that bad. It's insane. I think it's mainly because people tend to like not think about that parrots come from different places in the world, and so they want like a one-to-one, this is how a parrot's diet should be, but really different parrot species need different things in their diet, so it's not always like black and white. I think that's one of the reasons why. Now, Charlie gets a combination of fresh chop and pellets. In the morning she will get her chop, which is basically like all sorts of different vegetables mixed together and like chopped finely so that they can't sort in it. So it's a lot of vegetables, and veggies are so healthy for your birds. What are you doing? Charlie gets tops pellets. The most important reason being that tops is cold pressed, which basically, if you don't know, when you bake pellets, or most foods actually, some of the nutrients will go away. And so to get like the most nutritional beneficial pellet, I chose tops, and there are only 2 pellet brands I think out there who are cold pressed, being Tops and Bertrix's own pellets. What I also like about Tops is that they are organic and USDA like approved. Another popular pellet brand out there who's also organic is Harrison's, And Charlie actually started out on Harrison's. I don't know if... Oh, I actually do. I still have the bag. She started out on Harrison's, but I went away from it. Reason being that it is baked pellets, and the first ingredients is corn. For those of you that don't know, corn is sort of like a cheap filler that many companies use. It doesn't give any like nutritional value to the pellet at all. It's just there. So really, if you see corn as the first ingredients, because as we know, like the first ingredients is the one that there is most of. So having the not very nutritional value ingredient being the one that there's most of in the pellet, it doesn't seem very right. Now, unpopular opinion, but I actually believe that tops is like the only pellet that you should give your bird, because many of the other pellets have this either this corn problem where it's just corn, and you'll see the same in like dog and cat food. It's just corn and it doesn't give anything to the pet. But most other pellet brands have this problem. And not only that, but like I think Harrison's is the like second best option. But even that, like there's a big difference between the two. And then you have all these vitamin supplements, and it's like, well, why would you get all these vitamin supplements when your bird should get them naturally from like the sunlight or the chop or some other foods that you're giving it? There's no need to give all these vitamin supplements unless your vet told you to give your bird all these vitamin supplements. Because don't forget, like vitamin deficiency can also come from getting too many vitamins. And that's sort of my problem with these pellet brands. Going off of that, I also want to talk about seeds, because seeds and nuts has sort of become like curse words on parrot forums. And I don't think it's fair, because remember, like, seeds and nuts are still very nutritional, like even to us humans. Like, it's so good for us and it's so good for the birds. They are very fatty, yes, but it's healthy fat. We also need fat in our diet. Yes, it's unhealthy to feed an all seed diet. I'm not saying that you should go out and do that. It's very unhealthy. But just remember to give your bird some seeds and diets. Alright, I'm sorry for this whole rant and just me saying this is good, this is bad, but there is so much to parrot diet. If you want me to talk more about it, I'll gladly do, but I already mentioned Bird Tricks. You can go check them out. They are really, really amazing. Also check out a really good video made by Mikey the Macaw. They are interviewing this guy called Dr. Jason Dean, I believe. He talks a lot about parrot diet as well. Definitely check it out. Those are the ones I would recommend for like discussing parrot diet. I will move on from here. Okay, so I didn't know what to call this next section, because I wanted to talk about like cage size and enrichment and briefly talk about like household dangers and all that, but that doesn't really just like apply to the Pionus. So it's sort of like just insert bird name here, care. Okay, so I decided to film over here because the light changed and I can relax more, so. Alright, cages. So basically as large as possible. And I know that, of course, the cage requirements for like a budgie is different to the cage size of the macaw, for example. Unless you ask Amazon, then it's a whole other story, but like, come on. Alright. As large as possible, your bird is gonna spend some time in their cage. I see some people like getting small cages and then saying, well, my bird only sleeps in there. And while the concept of that is fine, your bird is not going to be in there only when it sleeps. Like, come on, no one is home 24/7 all day of the year and are only going to let their bird in their cage when they are going to sleep. That's just not possible. I don't believe it. Like, your bird is going to be in their cage when you are not home, and then you need to provide a cage large enough to give them space, but still like have room for toys and food bowls and a lot of different perches and all that stuff. So as large as possible, but also remember, of course, time out of the cage, get them some exercise. It's very important. Now, toys should be natural and chewable, which means like plastic. So the reason why plastic is really bad for your bird is because, I don't know if you try to break plastic, but it's very hard, and birds love to like destroy and chew things. So imagine a little budgie, who are often advertised with it. Imagine a budgie trying to destroy the plastic toy. It's really hard for it. And if you have some larger species, they might destroy it, and now you have like sharp edges, and they may ingest it. Anything like that, it's so dangerous. Like, just stay away from plastic toys. Instead, you could go for like some natural wood, some natural fiber, or anything like that that the bird can just go all out on and destroy. Now, other than like plastic toys, you should also stay away from like mirrors and habitats. These two things like encourages breeding behavior, because birds, first of all, can't like recognize their own reflection. They see like the bird in the mirror as another bird. And so they can get more hormonal and want to protect the mate in the mirror, and then you have like some behavioral problems coming through. The habitat, it's really not necessary at all either. It's made of fabric, which is the same like plastic problem, sort of. If your bird starts chewing it, they can ingest it and they can't get it through the system. So fabric you also need to watch out for. And birds don't need like beds. They sleep on one leg. They don't need beds. And now, what to put in the cage. So perches is like the thing the bird goes on. They're called perches. You'll need them obviously. And try to go for like natural wood ones. And also some rope ones. You can go for that, but just make sure that your bird is not a chewer and doesn't chew the rope, because then it's the same as I talked about with the rope toys. They can ingest it and it could get dangerous, and as I just mentioned, they're in there when they're home alone, and you don't want them to like ingest it when you're not home. So Charlie's not a chewer. She can have rope perches. I'm not afraid that she'll do anything to it. Yeah, just keep it in mind. And yeah, if you're going with like wood from outside, just double check that the wood is safe for birds, because some wood types aren't, so just keep that in mind, and maybe just rinse them with like warm water to get some of the bacteria off, in case there should be any, and then you're good to go. So the reason that these perches are really good is because they have a lot of different textures and come in a lot of different thicknesses. And so when the bird goes around their cage, they are gripping onto all sorts of different like materials and all that stuff. Whereas you'll often see cages come with these long, straight perches called dowel perches. And the problem with them is that they are very smooth and they have the exact same thickness and texture like all the way through. Which basically, if you imagine it, you can like see your bird have the exact same grip motion at all times. And this can cause something called bumblefoot, which is basically like sores on your bird's feet. So keep an eye out for that if you are using dowel perches a lot, or like the same texture perch. What's up? You're just sitting there. Wanna come up? Whee! Okay, so I am only briefly going to talk about household dangers, reason being there are a lot of things, and you can find some very good videos going into more detail on some household dangers you might not know about. But the big ones, for me anyway, is plants and quartz. Now, Charlie luckily doesn't really show interest in my plants or quartz. I mean, if they're up in her face, like, yeah, she'll chew it. She chewed one charger once, but I left that on the table, so that's on me, not her, to be honest. My big plant back here, she can't really get to. She won't. She tried landing in it a few times, but she can't really do that, so. Now, if your bird has access to the kitchen, Teflon might be something you need to look after. Teflon is something that companies use to coat their cookware to basically make it non-stick. But when the cookware then is heated up, some of the toxic chemical is released, and it's very, very, very toxic to the birds. Anyway, I feel like just plants and chartreuse and all that stuff, quartz in general, I like the big one for me. Obviously, there are a lot of different things. Most of the things are in the bathroom, I feel like. So just, like, don't bring your bird to the bathroom, I guess. Charlie goes with me when I take a shower, but I don't use anything there that could harm her. If you're going somewhere and need to use a lot of hairsprays or perfumes or the hairdryer, just leave them be. Don't take them with you to the bathroom. Alright, so before you purchase any bird, you need to know that they are a very, very big commitment in more than one way. Charlie, for example, the Pionus, lives for about 25-30 years. Sometimes older, sometimes younger, but in that lifespan. That means I'll be having Charlie till I'm in my like mid to late 40s. Just keep that in mind. And with every pet, you have to keep in mind it's not just the cost of the pet. There are a lot of other expenses like the cage, food every month, toy, enrichment, replacement enrichment, all that sorts of stuff. So really keep in mind how much is it gonna cost you to have this pet. Now, the cost of the Pionus. It really varies depending on what variant you want, but also where you live in the world and how you're gonna get it, because you can either adopt one or you can get one from a breeder. So I'm gonna talk about how I got Charlie and what my options were, and then you can sort of take it from there and see what your options are. So in teeny tiny Denmark, there are like one rescue on the internet where I can see available birds. Now, the birds on here are doves and doves and doves and some budgies, and I once found one Amazon parrot. Okay, so I just wanted to double check before I released the video, and as of now, there aren't that many doves actually. There's only one as far as I can see, but you can tell it's mostly budgies and cockatiels. The Amazon parrot I was talking about is the same one, it's not another one, so yeah, mostly budgies and cockatiels, so I guess you still get my point. Now, if you take that into account, that I only have one rescue in the whole country, and the rareness of the Pionus, I could wait for decades till one shows up. So, naturally, I went for a breeder. You can also get some from like the Danish Craigslist or your Craigslist, I don't know. But I just wasn't comfortable with it. I wanted a little baby more, and as long as you get one from an ethical breeder, I don't see a problem in getting any animal for that sake from a breeder. As long as they're doing it correctly, there shouldn't be any shame in getting any pet from a good breeder. And I just want to make it clear, I am not here to say that you should always go get a hand-raised bird. Like, if you want to adopt a bird, I think that is amazing. I just don't have that option here where I live, because there are so few parrots, and to have one of them end up in a rescue and have one of them be a Pionus, the chances are just so low. Okay, so how did I find a breeder? Now, I went to Google and I searched in Pionus breeders in Denmark, or like in Danish, I guess. And up came a website which totally looked like it would hack my bank account if I clicked on any of the links. But I did actually find 2 breeders, and I still have my money, so I'm good. But I was in even more luck, because out of the 2 breeders, one of them hand-fed their chicks and one of them didn't. And one of them lived 3 hours away and one of them lived 10 minutes away. And that was the hand-feeding guy. So yeah, I contacted him. The number actually still worked. And we set up a deal where I could come and look at her, and he would come up with a price, and yeah, I actually just made it from there. Originally, I actually wanted a bronze-winged Pionus, and I wanted a male, so that went well. But when I came to the breeder, he had one bronze-winged Pionus and two blue-headed. Now, I wasn't first in line for a bronze wing. I was first in line for a bronze wing male. So the thing was, all of the chicks became female, of course. And so even though I was like, okay, then I'll just get a blue-headed boy if the bronze wing is a boy, because I was sort of on one of those two. So I let fate decide, and fate didn't like me because it was all three girls. However, I'm obviously here today with Charlie, so you know how it ended out. I came to visit, and this little blue-headed chick crawled across the table over to me to say hi and crawl up my arms, and were acting super, super cute. And that was Charlie. I just had to take her home. Like, how couldn't I? Can we just appreciate the fact that the only hand-feeding Pionus breeder in the whole country lived 10 minutes away from me? Because... Okay, so half of this video just turned into general bird care, but there are so many things to keep in mind. I hear a lot of people saying that my bird is on an all-seed diet. It has been living fine in its cage for 30 years. And it's like, well, yeah, but it's not about like living, it's about thriving. I too can survive in a prison cell, but that doesn't mean that I'm happy or anything like that. Please do your research, guys. I know that there are a lot of pet YouTubers out there already. The more the better. If I help just one bird, it'll be all worth it. So please keep that in mind, do your research. Take this as like a nudge in the right direction. Well, that's all for me. First video, so if you guys have any content you want me to do, make sure to tell me to. And to make sure that you watch the content that you recommended, subscribe.